Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the new generation took over the WWF. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Oh, you're right. I think they were coming out of the shower.
With jeans.
What's even creepier about that is that they might have been showering together in the same stall.
With their jeans on.
Oh, well.
Never nudes.
Of course. Yeah, never nudes.
Joe Gimateo.
Wanted, Barry Dudinsky. The crime, robbery 3 counts. The sentence, execution.
Oh, poor Barry.
The sentence, Powerball.
Yeah. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw at a time. But first, we want to give a quick shout out to our listeners in Ireland. Good to have you over there in the Emerald Isle, and we hope you stick around for the future, because goddamn, there's a lot of wrestling to be had and to be watched here. So we're glad that you're with us, and we hope you stay with us for the next 3 decades as we continue our lives through the history of Monday Night Raw. Also, just to touch on this real quick, Ryan, Jobber of the Week status for this episode. What do you got for us?
There is no Jobber of the Week. We don't have a single match with a jobber tonight, so sorry.
Our newfound listeners in Ireland will be denied the dulcet tones of Ryan Arico's Jobber of the Week segment, unfortunately. But that's all right. We'll try to make up for it with quality content here.
There's plenty of them in the archives.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's a fair cross-section of the Jobber subset there.
I'd say majority of our episodes have a Jobber of the Week.
Yeah, we're in the early 70s, so I think it's safe to say we've probably got 69 jobbers on deck, right?
Maybe a little less. Because you got to remember, no pay-per-views ever have a jobber.
Yeah,
and then
that is true.
Here and there's been a few Raws like tonight where we didn't end up with jobbers. So.
Yeah, very true. All right, well, in this episode of Wrasslin' Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on September 25th, 1995. This Raw was recorded at the Welsh Auditorium in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and features Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then, let's get into it. Tonight, The Undertaker battles the British Turncoat, Davey Boy Smith. And the use of the word turncoat here is suspect. I'm not quite sure that's correct. But it was just last night that the Bulldog substituted for the erstwhile and missing Owen Hart, with Owen showing up and costing the heels the tag titles at In Your House 3. Now, just for a brief reminder to our listeners, this is the next day after In Your House 3. This is 24 hours later. But the battle continued on this morning as we see Jim Cornette and a lawyer that looked like he was ready to slap Gorilla Monsoon like Razor slapped Dean. We come to find out later that this lawyer's name is Clarence Mason.
I thought maybe it was Stephen P. New.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm throwing out this person's name, we don't find it out right away, but this person is named Clarence Mason, and take a shot every time somebody in this episode says Clarence Mason for the entirety of this. You'll be on your ass.
Or how about if you take a shot every time you hear 2 dudes with attitudes?
Armed with a contractual loophole, the decision was reversed from that tag match at In Your House 3 with the stipulation that the tag team champs get a rematch in the future, and the reinstated champions, Owen Hart and Yokozuna, will defend the championships here tonight on Monday Night Raw. And just have to throw it out there real quick to both of you. Ryan, I'll ask for your opinion first on this one. What do you think about the fact that our main event from just last night has been completely negated?
I think it's ridiculous and just shows how little confidence they have in the Smoking Guns, which is a shame because they don't deserve it. They deserve respect.
Yeah.
It was confusing going into that match, and it's just more confusing now that they were just stripped of the titles. They're not even there. They're not even there, but they were stripped of the titles, I guess.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know. The whole thing is very off-putting as far as I'm concerned. If it's that easy to make these kinds of decisions, then why have that pay-per-view at all? It feels like it demeans the value of the titles if they are this easily passed around and revoked, you know? Well, we get our new fall season intro that's sticking around, and then we come back to the ring for our first match of the night. Marty Jannetty defeats Skip with Sonny of the Body Donnas by pinfall in 7 minutes and 39 seconds. I thought it was odd that Vince says, "Here comes Marty Jannetty, what a surprise," while the Body Donnas music is still playing. Way to give it away there, champ. If there was any kind of surprise going on to the viewers at home, they weren't going to get one. The people in the crowd, though, they seemed a little worked up. They were pretty happy to see Marty Jannetty. And I, myself, was a little lukewarm until Marty tripped over the stairs on his way into the ring. That got me in the right kind of mindset to watch this match. As the match started and then continued, however, I got less and less happy. Marty looked like he had a bit of a ring rust problem going on here, and throughout the rest of the match. I would think, and this is just me spitballing, I would think that house shows would be the perfect place to scrub off something like ring rust before putting him back on TV. Maybe get him in the ring a couple times without the cameras on to get him back in shape before throwing him out on Monday Night Raw, but whatever, that's just me. There's an interaction at the outside between Marty, Skip, and Sonny. That was very entertaining, I thought. Marty goes to hug Sonny. Sonny thinks that it's Skip, and Sonny slaps him, or at least attempts to slap him, but Marty ducks out of the way. She ends up slapping Skip instead. I don't know what it was about it, but just the timing and interaction of that I thought was entertaining. Sonny really helped to sell all of it and make it work. She was the crown jewel in that one. Back in the ring, once they begin the action again, the action lackluster, I thought, until Skip took control, and Skip was able to get some good bumps out of Marty Jannetty and make a couple things look good. The gut wrench suplex, I thought, looked pretty good. The standing suplex also looked great. This was not a constant thing, though. There were quite a few just little stutter steps. It felt like maybe once or twice Skip was holding himself back to try to stay on Jannetty's pace. But, you know, I'm biased. I like Skip, so maybe you guys have a different take on that. I was not at all thrilled to see Dean Douglas present, taking notes on the match. And after I made this note, I kind of forgot about it. We don't really see Dean Douglas again, do we?
I don't think so.
I didn't think so either. Just a teaser for, you know, a shitty promo, I guess, that never came to be. Probably see that later on, but quick question. Did Vince seriously wish Barry Horowitz a Happy New Year on Rosh Hashanah?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I missed that.
Really soaking in that Jewish gimmick on old Barry. A little too much grandstanding towards the end of this match for me, but the move right before the finisher that Jannetty puts on Candido, it looked a bit like a Fameasser. Not quite sure what to call it, but he used
the
that
rocker
move.
Dropper.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not at all familiar with the Rockers as a tag team. Their moves, I mean. You know, I know they existed and who they were, but I couldn't tell you any of their chain moves. Okay, so that was the Rocker Dropper then. I feel that would have been a great place to end the match, but he just used that as a setup for a leap off the top turnbuckle into, what was that, an elbow? Kind of a lame follow-up to the Rocker Dropper, I thought. All in all, though, I don't know what the future holds for Marty Jannetty here in this run, but Joe, I want to hear from you first on this match because I'm pretty sure you're a Jannetty connoisseur, aren't you?
I wouldn't say I'm a connoisseur, but the rocker dropper is the move that he used to, unfortunately, paralyze a jobber. So you would know that if Vince actually knew the names of the moves and would call them.
Yeah, great point.
Well, he knew it. I heard it was called a maneuver.
Yeah. Marty's return, I mean, it's okay. Marty Jannetty and Skip are both pretty good wrestlers. Marty Jannetty with this return must have been a totally random thing. I don't recall reading anything in the Observer about this return. I feel like they maybe could have given him, as Bruce Pritchard would say, a fresh paint of coat. Maybe change his music or change his look or something. I feel like it's, even for 1995, it seems like the Rocker's gimmick is outdated.
Yeah.
The match itself, I didn't think it was terrible, but yeah, there's definitely some ring rust here you can see, and even looked pretty heavily choreographed at times. But getting Sunny involved, I was also entertained by that. I think anytime you get her involved, I'm going to enjoy it. More Sunny on screen is always great. You can tell she's trained by Jim Cornette. She was brought up by Jim Cornette. She has the same exact behaviors when she's outside of the ring there, slamming the mat, yelling at the crowd, flaring her arms at the crowd. You can just tell she was heavily influenced by Jim Cornette. And they're really treating Chris Candido like a total schmuck these days. Barry Horowitz losses, now Marty Jannetty returning. And Skip taking the loss. So it's not looking good for him. Hopefully something happens with him, because he's a great wrestler and they're two good, decent personalities that I hope they do something different here soon.
I thought it was funny you brought up how you wish that they would have changed something up about Marty, because the very first thing I have is, wow, not only is Marty Jannetty back, but his music is back too. And it sounds like it is straight out of the 80s.
They couldn't even remaster his fucking music for him.
No.
Yeah.
That video that I sent you this week of him wrestling from a few years ago, I think he was still using the same music, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more with Joe here. I don't think Marty looked terrible. The ring rust surely was there, but he looked okay with Skip. I mean, Skip looked better. There's no doubt about that. Skip looked better in the ring, but I thought Marty was selling for Skip fairly well, and things didn't look too bad when Marty was in control either. I know you guys both kind of liked it. It seems, I don't know, maybe this is a new thing Skip is doing, but anytime he's starting to take a beating, he would roll out of the ring and then start to hug Sunny. And that was what led to the Marty Jannetty sneaking in there for a hug as well. But, for someone who's getting buried so much, I don't think this is going to help. And that's kind of the sad thing about this match. I thought it was entertaining. I thought the ring work was good. These are two veterans here. But I was upset that they had to continuously bury Skip. I liked it when it was Horowitz, I didn't mind it then because I liked Horowitz so much, and, I don't exactly care for Marty Jannetty very much. So maybe that's the difference here, but Skip is such a good wrestler. I don't understand why we need to just keep on humiliating him time in and time out now. But we're going to make him come out here and just get buried to Marty Jannetty, who just came back, which, knowing his past, this is probably for a month?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to be back here long at all. So that's a bit upsetting. I didn't think it was a bad match, but why are we doing this to Skip?
Yeah, why are we burying Skip, and why are we putting him in mortal jeopardy of physical harm by being in the ring with Jannetty?
No necks were broken tonight, so that's a big plus, but...
Yeah, the only thing that I can really think of with that is, maybe Vince didn't like him because he was a Cornette guy. That didn't seem to really hold the Heavenly Bodies back too much. But I think maybe the real reason is Chris Candido's height. It's well known that Vince doesn't care for the shorter guys. And, technically, I think Skip here could qualify as a cruiserweight. I know he had a lot of really great matches with other cruiserweights in his class. So that's the only thing I can think of, because even Skip makes even Barry Horowitz look big. So that kind of explains that thing. But, anyway, we'll move it along here. And everybody needs to remember the name of attorney Clarence Mason, is what we are told. And we get another rehash of that triple threat bullshit from In Your House 3. And here we get a little more video footage from the boardroom. Clarence Mason continues to grill Gorilla Monsoon, and they just repeat everything again. Basically, the entire video package that began this episode gets repeated, and we get the added information that tonight's tag match with the Smoking Guns will be a tag team championship match. This is the official word of Monsoon here. Just briefly, Joe, the name of Clarence Mason is really, really familiar to me. I can't say for sure it's from this necessarily, but as somebody that has been, on the record before as liking the authority figures, what do you think about this legal angle they're putting on things and putting so much story on Monsoon's shoulders here?
I think that a lot of the stuff that Gorilla Monsoon did tonight as president was really questionable. Like with this lawyer thing, he's kind of like standing down to this Clarence Mason nobody, kind of letting him just walk all over him. And then later in the evening, I'm sure we'll talk about some of the announcements that are just randomly made for no reason. So yeah, I don't know. Just didn't like it that much.
Well, because, it seems like, at least from the past and from what we know even moving forward into the future from this, if someone has that role as president, they don't have to follow stupid rules. This is like almost a kingship, you know what I mean? Like, what they say goes, and if Gorilla says, I don't care what your lawyer says, they lost, then that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting how we go from Jack Tunney to Gorilla Monsoon here. And, in the past, Jack Tunney was rarely seen, but they brought him out as kind of a big gun to make really big decisions. Whereas here we've got the people's president in Gorilla Monsoon almost micromanaging everything and sticking his finger into a lot of different pies here, and it seems like we can't have a happy medium, or at least not yet. We maybe get to that point, but we've gone from a president with virtually zero interaction with the product to somebody that is featured heavily in this episode and making a shit ton of questionable decisions. So I'm really curious to see where this goes in the future and if we'll enjoy it or not. I remember fondly Monsoon as president, but that was me as a kid. We'll find out if it stands the test of time. Well, that new little bit of information that we get from this segment will then carry us on to our next match. The Smoking Guns defeat Owen Hart and Yokozuna by pinfall to win the WWF Tag Team Championship in 10 minutes and 9 seconds. We're going to kick this off in the lamest way possible with Doc Hendricks and the lovely Tammy, whoever the hell that is, doing their best fucking Barry Dudensky impression. It falls flat because there is nothing about this situation that is making me want to buy that incredibly ugly shirt as Doc Hendricks just sleazes all over poor Tammy.
She looked uncomfortable.
Yeah, she looked uncomfortable, and I felt wistful for the days of Barry Dudensky. Never thought I'd ever say that. We cut to commercial. This match hasn't even started yet, and Vince is putting over the following match, that being The Undertaker versus the British Bulldog. I thought that was kind of weird.
He did the same thing last night at the pay-per-view, if you remember. He's really up on this match.
And it's a shame, because the match that we're about to get into, well, we'll talk about it here. We come back from that break to see the Smoking Guns entrance, but then cut to commercial again, and come back to the match already in action. This episode was plagued with some production issues and bad commercial timing. But once we get in the ring and get going, the speed and precision of Owen Hart and Bart Gunn can't be overstated. These guys looked great together. All of their sequences looked fantastic. And then things kept up with Owen and Billy Gunn. But then Yoko takes a couple minutes to haul his big ass into the ring, and things slow down a bit. And I just, whenever I thought that maybe things weren't going to take on that great of a hue, we get picture in picture with the two dudes with attitudes watching on from backstage, apparently. And then, I was a little down when we started the usual 3 clotheslines to drop Yoko routine. But things picked up with the way that Billy Gunn tossed it up. He does some missile drop kicks onto Yoko instead of the clotheslines and then rounded it out with a bulldog. I don't know that I've ever necessarily seen anybody bulldog Yokozuna, but I thought that was a very nice touch. And I thought that an especially bad touch was the ref exiting the ring to hold Bart back on the outside while Owen was stomping Billy outside. This is another one of those examples of just really shitty, poor in-ring storytelling from the official. At least with Bob Holly in that last match that we talked about with referee involvement, that seemed like it was more Bob Holly's fault. But here, there was just no reason for the ref to go to the outside. Once again, Owen Hart is the master of the enziguri, and Billy Gunn sold the shit out of it for him. That was another great-looking sequence. And then just as I was beginning to get up on this match, again, we get the Vulcan nerve pinch. It can't go by in a Yokozuna match. The trading reversals by flopping on the mat really started to lose me after that. But I tell you what, that was a hot tag from Billy to bring Bart in once Owen was back in the ring, and it had me popping because it felt like the action was going to get cranked back up again. The double teaming looked great. The Smoking Guns finisher into a false finish was great. Yoko flopping down onto Owen was great. Billy missile drop kicking Yoko out of the ring was great. And Bart getting the pinfall on Owen to win the championships was great. I was on a high coming out of this match. After starting it with a little bit of trepidation, I greatly enjoyed this. But then the two dudes with attitudes came out and climbed into the ring. There's no shenanigans here. They were just there to congratulate the new champs, but they were still enough of a spectacle to steal a little bit of the Smoking Guns' thunder in what should have been the Guns' time to shine in the sun. Yeah, so I loved this match. Ryan, what did you think of it?
I'm in complete agreement. I thought this match stole the show tonight. That is surprising. I didn't think that Yoko still had a match. I'm not going to say it's because of him that it was a fantastic match, but the fact that he was involved in what was a very entertaining match is shocking. We start out with Bart and Owen, and they look just absolutely phenomenal together. It looked really good, and the commentary was good here, too. I got a kick out of the King saying that the Smoking Guns never got over the fact that Gunsmoke was canceled. I thought that was a clever line out of him. And even, once Yoko came in, at least the first time, of course, things were slowed down. I mean, it's Yoko. But like you mentioned, the law of three comes in here, and Billy switches it up, though. He goes with the drop kicks and the bulldog, and I thought that Yoko sold them really well here, too. I also thought Yoko's reversal. Billy goes for a crucifix, and Yoko just puts all 600 pounds back on him as a reversal and just lands on him. And yeah, I thought for a big, heavy guy like Yoko, that's a good way to reverse a crucifix. It was unfortunate, though, that he had to put the Vulcan nerve pinch in, because they did not time this one up with commercials, and it was long. Even Billy, he was trying to rally the crowd by stomping in the corner, but sorry, Billy, you're not going to get the crowd pumped up for the Vulcan nerve pinch. But to Yoko's credit, after he caught his breath, he continued to look pretty good. And I think what really put this match over was the ending. This almost Three Stooges style where Bart and Billy slingshot Owen into Yoko's girth to start this finish off, I thought was a good way to start it. And then the Smoking Guns nail their great finish, and then Yoko tries to interrupt, but Bart's able to get out just in time, and then they come away with the win and the belts. I'm shocked that they finally put the belts on the Smoking Guns. I'm disappointed that this wasn't last night on a pay-per-view. Yeah. Because this was heads and shoulders above the Two Dudes and Attitudes tag match. But yet we couldn't allow this good match. We had to put that garbage on the pay-per-view. And what do you know? The Two Dudes with Attitudes are going to come out here and ruin the end of it, too.
Yep.
Yeah, I had quite a mix of emotions during this match. I could probably sum them up in less than a minute. Starts out with Bart and Owen, like you guys talked about, getting off to a fast start. I was into it. The crowd was really into it. Then we get the nerve pinch for like 25 minutes. And surprisingly, the crowd was still into it because Bartlett, you mentioned that hot tag for Bart Gunn, and the crowd was really, really into it. Definitely into the guns. I don't know what it is about Vince McMahon not being comfortable with the smoking guns at this point. Awesome finish. Ryan, you pretty much recapped all of that there. I mean, it might be the best finish that we've seen in a tag team match.
Yeah.
Especially a title match. Huge, massive pop from the crowd. Really awesome. And then the two dudes come out and it's ruined. It's just a shame that they couldn't enjoy that celebration with that crowd, you know, because those guys earned it. They've worked their asses off. They just won the title. The crowd is blowing up, and then the fucking two dudes come out. So Vince, again, just ruining the tag team division.
They have to come out and still the thunder. Why?
Yeah, for no reason.
Way to go on the marketing team. Right as the match was done, they show a shot of a father and son who have on like crisp, brand new Smoking Guns shirts. Like they still have the creases on it. They just got it from the concession stand. And I mean, they had these shirts ready to go for this win. So, good marks on that.
Yeah, and those didn't look bad either. I could see myself wearing one of those. Those were pretty nice shirts.
No, they weren't too bad at all. They kind of reminded you of the cowboy shit shirts with like the coloring and style.
Yeah, this match, I came away with two main thoughts after this match. First thought was, God damn, I wish Yoko was thinner.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean that in a general sense and also specifically with this match, but just earlier this evening, Joe, you shared with us a picture of when Yoko first started out as, what was it, King, shit, I can't remember how to pronounce the name. King Konakiri, something like that. Well, anyway, he was in the AWA or one of the smaller territories whenever he first debuted. And Ryan, you said that you thought it was Rikishi at first.
Yeah, that's about what size he was. He was Rikishi's size.
Yeah, so for those of us out there that are, or those of you out there that are closer to our age and were, watching during the Attitude Era, when Yoko first started out, he was about the size of Rikishi, and he just kept on getting bigger and bigger. If this Yoko were the size of Rikishi in this match, I think this would have been an incredible tag team match. And the second point that I took away from this is, while I can't quite in good conscience put this up for a match of the year candidate, I kind of think this is probably the best tag team match we've seen in all of 1995 so far.
And probably a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe even more than just 95. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, and we talk about it frequently here, the shitty situation that the tag teams are in, or tag division, but it was really good to see the Guns get the win here. God damn, just a really good match. Really solid match. We will move it along. Wanted, Jean-Pierre Lafitte. The crime? 3 counts of robbery. He's apparently going to face execution for the second time with Bret Hart. I wasn't under the impression that execution is something that doesn't take the first time around. But apparently we're going to do it again here with Bret Hart. And also, speaking of doing things again, the 1-2-3 Kid and Razor Ramon, they're going to go at it again. That's right, folks. We're going to repeat some matchups that we've just had next week on Monday Night Raw.
This is what you get when they're taping like 4 shows at one time.
Yeah.
Because they're probably doing those matches.
So, Joe, I mean, you probably would know this if any of us do. When does that stop? When do they finally? When are they finally humiliated enough by Nitro making fun of it that they decide to give that up?
I have no idea. I don't know. Okay. Right now, they were doing it right before Nitro, and they decided to continue doing it even with Nitro debuting. So I don't know.
See, I chalked this up to them kind of blowing their loads all over all of these pay-per-views that they just don't seem to be prepared for. Like, the way I interpreted it is they had stories booked out for like a few months ahead of time, but with the need to have so many forced headline matches and stuff like that, that they just kind of worked through a lot of their stories And now they're just kind of grasping at straws and looking to fill time by repeating some of these crowd favorite matches. I don't know. That's just a thought, But
I mean, regardless, it looks like something I'm not going to hate. I mean, Bret Hart, Jean-Pierre, 1, 2, 3
right.
Kid, Razor Ramon. I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah. Just like we took the second ladder match.
Yeah, exactly.
But it still just kind of smells like they're running out of ideas and so need to repeat things.
There is zero originality here, for sure.
Yeah, well, speaking of zero, we're going to go back to the ring after this little video package promoting next week's Monday Night Raw, and the celebration is still continuing in the ring with Shawn Michaels and Diesel waving and getting up into the camera as
Wait a second, who?
Shawn Michaels and Diesel? Two dudes with attitudes, pardon me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my bad. The two dudes with attitudes were waving and getting up into the camera as if they had anything to do with anything right now. But speaking of things that don't have anything to do with anything, Doc Hendricks is going to have Gorilla Monsoon there for an interview right in the middle of the fucking entryway. And we're going to broadcast that, just right in the middle of the Bulldogs entrance for the next match. We're not quite there yet, but this is a way of saying that this was competing for my attention here because you have these two trying to talk. It's being broadcast over the PA system along with the British Bulldog's music. You've literally got the British Bulldog having to walk around Gorilla Monsoon and Jim Cornette walking around Gorilla Monsoon while this is going on. Meanwhile, behind them is the video display, the many different television monitors that are put together for a big screen. So you've got 5 different kinds of input all hitting you all at once for this, and it was just really poorly done, I thought. But the end product of this conversation is, it seems like, and one of you two, if I misheard this, please correct me, because again, I was distracted by all of this shit. It seems like the British Bulldog will be taking on Diesel for the championship at the next In Your House. And I didn't hear them explicitly say this, but just going by the graphic that was up on the screen behind them, Shawn Michaels is going to be taking on Dean Douglas at that In Your House. And apparently that's going to be for the Intercontinental title, because I guess these promos that he's done has earned Dean Douglas a shot at the IC title, I guess. Anyway, Ryan, again, this stuff was a little hard for me to follow, but what did you take away from this?
Well, I mean, kind of that. I think what you mentioned there, I believe you're correct. I think you covered it, but it was just so many things going on here. I don't know. I was about as confused as the Bulldog looked as he walked by.
Yeah, you're missing one. Bret Hart is going to face the champion at Survivor Series.
There you go.
Third.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's confusing because of the location that they had it. Everything about this was stupid. The location, like, why wouldn't you have it in Gorilla Monsoon's office or somewhere like that? I can understand if you have something that's happening tonight. Tonight, whoever will take on the Undertaker,
Or do it in the ring.
Yeah.
With this, it's silly. So you're saying that the Bulldog is going to be getting a title shot. So obviously you're not going to have him lose to the Undertaker tonight, because that would look really stupid, right?
Yeah.
So we already know what's going to happen in the next match, or at least have an idea of what's going to happen. And then Bret Hart, I guess, I mean, he deserves a title shot, whatever. That's going to happen at Survivor Series. But you just made Gorilla Monsoon look like a total jackass this whole episode, and now you're having him make these huge announcements. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Just doesn't fit.
What do you think about Dean Douglas apparently getting a shot at the IC title?
Does he deserve it? He had one match, right?
And it wasn't great.
Yeah. It makes no sense at all.
And he's going up against another member of the Clique. Like, I can see why this is maybe not a very long run for Dean Douglas if they're doing this shit to him, Not giving him a chance with jobbers at the outset, or I don't know. The 0 to 60 strategy with him seems like a really good way to just burn him out and get him out of things.
This is where you're missing Jeff Jarrett, this type of stuff.
Yeah, excellent point yet again with that. All right. Well, as I said before, that very inconvenient interview takes place at the intro to our last match of the night. The Undertaker with Paul Bearer defeats the British Bulldog with Jim Cornette. Kinda. And he wins by disqualification. It isn't really a defeat. He wins by DQ in 7 minutes and 29 seconds. So they've really nailed the small-scale Monday night entrance for The Undertaker here. It's like pay-per-view level intensity scaled down for Monday Night Raw. The crowd popped their asses off for it, and so did I. But we end up cutting to commercial, though. And I'm pretty sure the bell rang to start the match while we were away, because when we come back, The Undertaker is chasing the Bulldog outside of the ring. It was disorienting me in my sense of like where we're at in the pace of the match. It was harder to get into it after that. Usually I can't stand Earl Hebner, but at one point The Undertaker intimidates Hebner and Hebner climbs out of the ring in fear of The Undertaker. I thought that was a pretty good little touch for just the kind of mood of the ring. But getting back to some of those production issues I mentioned earlier, the quick change-ups of camera work that happened during this match, it took it down a little bit for me. It was very frantic, switching from one angle to another. It almost seemed like they were trying to get the best possible angle, but just couldn't settle on one to stick with. If they would have just left it on the fucking hard camera, it would have been perfect, but they have to justify the camera costs, I guess. But The Undertaker laying hands on Jim Cornette and the crowd pop that went with it was great. That was an excellent little spot. But then we get King Mabel and Sir Mo lurking at the top of the entryway. That brought me down a little bit. But then, oh shit, Waylon Mercy is there watching the match also. Like, what the fuck is that going on? The crowd really pumped and into this match. And as much as those little tidbits there, you know, King Mabel and Waylon Mercy, as much as King Mabel kind of made me sad and Waylon Mercy made me a little interested, the crowd canceled it all out. You can't help but feel the energy when the crowd is into it, and thankfully the Marty Jannetty, well, you know what? I take that back. Even the Marty Jannetty match, that crowd was happy as hell to see Marty Jannetty. The crowd was happy as hell and popping their asses off for the tag team championship match, and that energy carried over into this match. You can't help but feel it. The Bulldog gets a pile driver on The Undertaker. It shocked the hell out of me. I can't explain why that shocked me so much. It seems like they wouldn't want to risk The Undertaker in that way. But then again, I mean, the Bulldog is a true professional that is a fantastically trained individual. So I suppose that it was a very safe thing to do, all things considered. But it was just startling, I guess. But that pile driver was a great spot to lead into the classic Undertaker sit up. And then the Bulldog gives the Undertaker a vertical suplex, and the Undertaker sits up. And then another vertical suplex and another sit up. This was great storytelling. This is the kind of mythic phenom Undertaker shit that I love. It's not exactly no-selling. You know, if it was anybody else, you could call it no-selling and think that it might cheapen the match. But out of The Undertaker, it just adds to that aura of indestructible, supernatural power that he brings with him.
Well, I think it's because, you know, he does sell getting hit. It's just his recovery to it looks supernatural.
Yeah. I don't mean that. What I was saying, I didn't mean that to infer that he was completely no-selling.
No, and I understand. I was just kind of, you know, expanding on that. Is like, to me, that's the difference to like a Mabel no-sell to an Undertaker sells the hit, but then he recovers in a way that makes him look impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, I completely agree with that. But all good things come to an end, and King Mabel finally comes down to the ring to interfere. His bullshit here secures the disqualification win for The Undertaker. The match is over, but the action continues. And just once again, I have to make clear how great the power slam from the Bulldog looks when he's applying it to somebody bigger than him especially. All of the Bulldog's moves always look great, but whenever the Bulldog does it to somebody that is just empirically bigger than him, it just makes it that much more impressive. It really gives him a Bulldog aura. But once again, Shawn Michaels and Diesel, the two dudes with attitudes, come down. This time they're there to clear the ring. But then Owen Hart and Yokozuna are out. And then the Smoking Guns. We joked about it earlier, but the Smoking Guns were literally still covered with soap from the showers. They're down and in the ring.
Wet, soapy jeans.
Yeah, this isn't by any means an exaggeration. There is like full gigantic wads of lather all over them. It's not that they just look a little wet. They've got fucking soap all over them. And there's a standoff with the babyfaces in the ring protecting the Undertaker, which just stood out as weird to me because I don't know. I guess I'm not used to people protecting the Undertaker. But at that point, we cut to a commercial, and that's where I decided to call this the end of that particular segment. There is more after this that directly follows, but for the sake of our conversation, we're going to limit the segment to this point. So, Joe, please get us going on this match and then that just real brief, immediate fallout coming out of it.
Well, right away, like I said, when they told us that the Bulldog is the #1 contender for the WWF Championship, I thought, well, there's going to be some type of interference in this match somehow. And it happened, and it was with Mabel, so it was terrible, and it was not timed appropriately because you have the Undertaker in there selling this knee injury for too long. He's like wobbling over the Bulldog, waiting for Mabel to get his fat ass in there. And it just looked terrible. Just really bad finish. As far as the Bulldog goes, again, he still doesn't look completely comfortable to me in a heel role yet. So I really hope that turns around soon. And I thought it was a pretty good match overall. I liked the Undertaker doing his sit-ups after all those near falls. But again, the finish was just a schmoz finish that was just terrible. Two dudes with attitudes again. Like they come out twice, but we still didn't get their reaction of being stripped of the tag team titles. I guess they're okay with that. And they come out, and now they're friends with the Guns. You know, they're shaking hands with the Undertaker, helping him. Undertaker looked like he was at a funeral, shaking their hands. Like it actually looked like, sorry for your loss type of a handshake. So, yeah, I just, the match was okay, but clearly it was set up for this terrible ending.
Yeah, that was a real disappointment because I thought the match was very solid. You have two greats in there, the British Bulldog and the Undertaker, and, right from the beginning, the Undertaker gets whipped into the ropes, and, it looked great. He put, his full weight into it. The ropes look like they were bending into the front row of the crowd, and he comes back and just grabs the Bulldog by his head and slams him down, and he's giving all of his classic moves, his flying clothesline. When the Bulldog took over, man, that looked great too. The Bulldog slam, you mentioned it, Bartlett, just how great it looks when the Bulldog's doing his slams against someone bigger. And I have to agree because it definitely looked special here against the Undertaker. We've all mentioned the great spot where the Undertaker is just doing quick sit-up after sit-up. This is kind of the Undertaker's Hulk Hogan shaking the finger, wagging the head type thing. This is his rally when he starts doing that, and he follows it up with a choke slam, but then here comes Mabel wobbling down to the ring, and we knew how this was going to end. So, this was a very entertaining match that the crowd loved, that was ruined again by a shitty ending and won by Mabel. And then we follow that up with the two dudes with like an attitude again. I mean, they came out, I think, almost every match tonight. They give the Undertaker assistance, and then they shake his hand. The Undertaker's out there shaking people's hands. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with everything there. This was a very good match, but the ending. And you knew it was coming. As soon as you saw King Mabel lurking with Sir Mo, you knew.
Mm-hmm.
And what was really weird about this is that we also had Waylon Mercy lurking, but he wasn't part of this. He didn't show up in the end, which is good. I didn't really want to see him interfere, but it just kind of makes you scratch your head and say, well, okay, when are they going to have a thing going on?
What was he doing there?
Yeah.
I mean, half the locker room ended up coming out there, but Waylon Mercy was not one of them.
Yeah. So, as I said before, we kind of ended that particular section with a cut to commercial. And when we come back from that commercial break, which that commercial break was for WrestleMania, the special, and we see that great shot of Nikki Turturro, and that's it. That's the only thing that was on the screen. Back in the ring, this is where we have The Undertaker back on his feet, but for some reason, we're blasting the Gallop of Roseanne. The whole thing was shit before, but this is where I decided to try to make this like the real final segment because, you know, we have the interlude with the commercial, but we come back, and even though there's that schmoz ending where we've got all of these different characters in the ring, the one music that we're playing is fucking Diesel's entrance music. I don't see how that makes sense in any fucking way, really. I mean,
it's the only way to set up Diesel and Shawn to dance for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. Once we see the entrance, you know, we see them still standing in the ring. We have Diesel's entrance music there, and we cut to commercial again almost immediately. We're not back from commercial for any longer than like 15 seconds before we cut to commercial yet again. But right before we cut to that second commercial is where we see the shot of The Undertaker shaking Shawn Michaels' hand. So just off. Like, none of this should be happening. None of this fits. We come back from commercial, that second commercial break now, and everybody has left except Diesel and Shawn. This...
Easy on your table there.
I'm sorry. Like, this pissed me off so much. The two dudes with attitudes are still in the fucking ring, but now, instead of Diesel's music playing, it's the Heartbreak Kid's music playing, and he's stripping in the ring. He's just there, and he's stripping in the ring. We've had all of this. We had new fucking champions crowned tonight. We had the return of a legend. We had two professional fucking top-notch quality wrestlers going at it, but we can't even highlight any of that. We're going to highlight Shawn Michaels stripping in the fucking ring before we cut to the finish of that Razor Ramon Dean Douglas match from In Your House 3. We get the disgusting news on top of that apparently the 1-2-3 Kid has been talking to Ted DiBiase. Disgusting. And of course, let's just remind everybody, next week on Raw, we've got the Kid versus Razor, Jean-Pierre Lafitte versus Bret Hart. And while we're talking about this, the entire time, nothing but Diesel and Shawn Michaels playing around in the ring. Thankfully, though, we officially end this episode with a replay of Bart Gunn pinning Owen Hart. So we can at least, I guess, say that the final 3 seconds of this episode went out on a high note before we fade to black. Joe, what the hell was going on with the way this episode ended?
I wasn't nearly as pissed off as you are, but it was disturbing, and really just what a clusterfuck of a show. To have Shawn Michaels stripping at the end of the show makes no sense at all. And really watching all of this now is, we know about Vince's obsession with Shawn Michaels through stories and stuff, but this is really bad. This time period with Vince obsessing over Shawn Michaels. He's like, did you see Vince like chair dancing when his music was playing?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's really fucking weird. You know, they all say that Vince saw a lot of himself in Shawn Michaels with that, you know, the arrogant attitude and stuff, but it's really disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, this was a weird Raw because of the fact that we had some really good matches, but it seemed like every match had to end with the two dudes with attitudes ruining it somehow. You know, like, this was a perfect example. This 5 minutes at the end that we spent highlighting them instead of this match with the Bulldog and the Undertaker. This ending was really bad. Like, I don't know if I wanted to burn down the world like Bartlett, but it was a very poor ending.
Yeah, completely agreed. It's not so much that I want to burn down the world. It's just that the fucking bushwhackers as shitty as that stuff was, it made sense in the context of the episode for the most part. This, no sense whatsoever. Not only is it shitty, but it makes no sense. And
Sean must dance and strip.
Yeah. And with Hulk Hogan, Hulk must pose. That was after a pay-per-view after he just defended the title.
Yes.
This was just some random Sean must strip moment that just made no sense. And Vince just fucking loves it. He gushes over it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can take a look at this entire episode, and if you were to subtract the two dudes with attitudes from all of their spots in this episode, it would have been amazing. Yep. And that's the real fucker of it all, is that they served no purpose in this except to drag it down. And that's what pisses me off, because somebody somewhere, Vince, thought that was a good idea. Fuck him for that, because this could have been an amazing. I mean, come on, man. We've been bitching about the tag team titles for months now, and we get an amazing tag team match where the titles change hands in what I think we all agree could have been a pay-per-view match, but fuck them. Here's the two dudes with attitudes. Okay, I'll move on, but just that's why it pisses me off so much. This is just disgusting. Anyway, that's the end of the episode. We will kick it now to highlights and lowlights. Ryan, please go first.
Highlight? It's easy. The tag team championship match. This was a greatly entertaining match despite the typical handicaps that Yoko typically brings to a match. Everyone in this worked good. I'm excited that the Smoking Guns rightfully have the belts. Solid match. I really liked it, and easy highlight. So was the low light. The low light, two dudes with attitudes. I mean, they are the entire low light. At multiple occasions tonight, brought the show down.
My highlight is the crowd. This is Michigan?
Yes, Grand Rapids.
So, props to the Michigan crowd. I thought they were great. They brought it. They were really into the show, really popped for the title change. My low light is a little bit beyond the two dudes with attitudes, just the entire production of this show. Between the whole two dudes with attitude stuff and Gorilla Monsoon just making him look like a jackass, I thought this whole time, I thought that this show was just poorly produced and just slapped together.
Yeah, Joe, I can totally see all of that. You make some really good points with that. Unfortunately, I'm going to go with Ryan on this one, on both counts, the highlight and the low light. I've said it already here, so I won't dwell on it, but amazing tag match, fantastic change of a title there, and surprisingly, a good match out of Yokozuna. I mean, it's a rare thing that we had there in that tag match. And for the low light, the two dudes with attitudes just stealing everybody's thunder. I know I shouldn't blame it on them because somebody was telling them to go out and do this stuff, probably. But still, I can't not hold them responsible for literally dragging down every single part of this episode. So, that being said, Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around September 25th, 1995 for us?
Well, not a whole lot, really. Just a couple notes here. A.C. Connor. Are you guys familiar with that name?
Yeah.
No.
Ryan, you know who that is?
I just, the name sounds very familiar.
That is D'Lo Brown.
Okay.
I believe he was manager for the Gangsters in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, right? Wasn't he with them?
Yes, he was.
He is getting a WWF tryout, so we might see D'Lo Brown sometime shortly. We'll see.
Good.
The other piece of news here is that Jeff Jarrett was reportedly flown in to discuss returning, but unfortunately there is no word yet on whether or not he's returning. So, not a whole lot in the news this week. Most of it was just kind of recapping some of the Raw tapings that I don't like to read because I don't like to know what happens. So that's all I have this week.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to seeing D'Lo. I mean, he was never one of my tippy-top favorites, but I don't remember D'Lo Brown ever disappointing me.
Yeah, he was always entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of comparable to Savio Vega,
Yeah.
I think. I mean, we're going to find out here soon, hopefully. You know, we'll see if hindsight rings true, but yeah, I look forward to that. All right, and that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us, and if you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on every major social media and podcast subscription platform by searching up the handle Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. While you're there, don't forget to click subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review, and let your friends know about the fastest growing wrestling podcast in the world. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on October 2nd, 1995, with matches featuring, and get this, a tag team called PG-13, members of which are JC Ice and Wolfie D.
All right.
As well as an individual by the name of Sonny Rogers, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.